Welcome to Module 4. Module 4 should be your favorite topic because it's about money. I want to show you things today so that it helps you save money, so you won't overpay for loans and such. So you will be able to calculate exactly how much you should be paying given the interest rate. So let's get started. Some definitions first. Principal. It's the amount of money you either lend away or borrow. Interest. That's what you pay for type of money. So like if you're lending money, you won't be able to use that money for a duration of time. So what's the cost of that? That's the interest. There are two types. Simple and then compounding. And we will cover both of those. T is time. R is the rate, basically the interest rate. Typically given to you in percentages, say like 3%. But in calculation, we use the decimal, so 0.03 as an example. All these interest calculations, there's a formula for each one of them. So basically your job is to figure out which interest rate or interest problem you're doing, use the right formula, and calculate. Okay. So let's do the simple interest. Formula for that is E times I times T. Principal times interest times T. A is accumulated interest for that per period. So let's say you borrow $100, the rate of 10% over 5 years. How much do you owe at the end of the first year, and how much do you owe at the end of the 5th year? So, using the formula, 100, 10% is 0.1. 0.1 time is how many years? Let's say first 1 year. So your interest accumulated is $10. So you pay back 110 after first year. How about after 5 years? Well, just increase the time to 5 years. So 100, 0.1 times 5. This would be $50. So at the end of the 5th year, you pay back $150. Pretty simple, and that's why it's called a simple interest. Okay. So let's move on to the compound interest. Compound interest. There are a few different ones, so we'll go cover one by one. The general definition is this. Where APR is the annual percentage rate. It's compounded because it's raised to the power T. Oh, yep. Okay. So let's say you do the same problem, $100, APR of 10%, which is 0.10, and T is either 1 or 5. So the first year, so in this case, A is the total accumulated amount, not just the interest, but this is the whole amount. So this formula does the whole thing. So 1 year, A will be 100, 1 plus 0.10, raised it to the 1. This is essentially the same as saying 100 times 1.1, 110. So as you can see, between the compound interest and then simple interest rate, the cumulative amount at the end of the first year or the first time period is the same. So let's do after 5 years. 1.1 because it's the same. But this is raised to the 5th power. So in your calculator, type in 100 times 1.1 raised to the 5th power, whatever your power button is for your calculator. If you have a TI-30, that's the button. If you type that in, you get 161.05. And we cut it off at 2 decimal points because that's what we do in the typical world. So we go up to the cents, so we run it up at 2. So if you compare this to the simple interest, which was 150, you see the compounded interest accumulates more a month by $11 more. So the moral story is, if the compound interest, if you're borrowing, you will end up paying more. And that's typically what the case is. You don't typically see the simple interest loans anymore. Right? Alrighty. So let's move on to the compound interest. Paid n times a year. So the previous example assumed that you only pay back interest once a year. But if you look at the loans, that's not typically the case. You typically maybe pay back every quarter, every month, or even every day. So if you're accumulating interest at different time frame, year, month, or quarter, you need a different formula. And the formula for that is one plus APR divided by n, raise it to n times t. So this is easy to show with an example, so let's do one. So let's say you borrow $5,000, that'd be the principal, at the rate APR of 3%, which is 0.03. Monthly, so that means, so here's what you have to kind of figure out, what does it mean monthly? Well, monthly means 12 times a year, so n will be 12. If it's quarterly, it's going to be 4 year. If it's going to be daily, 365. But for monthly, it's 12. T is typically how many years? So that's 5. So let's use those numbers to figure out what's the cumulative amount. Okay. So 5,000, 1 plus 0.03 divided by 12, raise it to n times t. So what's n? 12. What's t? 5. So 12 times 5, that's 60. Basically, this number up here is how many actual payments are you going to make over the period of the loan. So your loan's 5 years, your interest pays 12 times a year. So how many payments are you making? 12 times 5, 60 times. Okay, so here's the general setup. It's easiest to do this part first, and then do this, and then do that. So let's figure out what's inside here. 1 plus 0.3 divided by 12. That's 1.005, 1.0025, so 5,000, 1.0025 raised to the 60. Okay, so one more time, just to make sure you understand how to do this in your calculator. 5,000 times 1.0025, raise it to 60. If you do that, you get 580808. So that would be a loan. That's how much in total you pay back when you borrow 5,000. So in this case, then the principal is 5,000. That doesn't change. So you'd be paying about 808 bucks in interest. Okay, so that's how you do any problem that says paid n times a year. And the n could be 12 times, 4 times, 365 times, whatever the number is. Just plug it in here, follow the formula. Boom, you get the answer. The last type of compound interest is continuously compounded interest. Continuously, okay? And the formula for that is A is P, this thing called E, which I'll explain in a minute, raise it to the rate times T. R could be APR, like the shampoo conditioner combo. Not really. So P times exponential, that's what the E is. Raise it to the R times the T. To get to the E, typically on your TI calculator, what you do is press second key and then ln key, natural log key. We'll do that in action. So let's say you borrow 100 bucks, or you deposit 100 bucks, APR of 8%, which is 0.08, and then T of 10 years. If you deposit this in the bank account with these conditions, how much money would you have at the end of 10 years? So plug in the formula. 100 is, or accumulated is 100 E, raise it to 0.08 times 10, which is the same as saying 100 E 0.8. Well, let's do this all at once in your calculator. So if you have a TI-30 again, this would be 100 times second key, ln key. So on your screen it should look like this. And then type in 0.08 times 10. Typically you have to put the closing parentheses, but your calculator will do it for you. You just press enter. And if you do that, you get 222.55 cents. So practice this and make sure you get 222.55. 100 times second key, ln key, and then 0.08 times 10. So let me just make sure that's the case. Yeah. Bingo. This should look like this.
So that's how you do all type. These are the types of the problems you'll see: compounding, simple interest, the continuously compounded, interest compounded n times a year. Okay. So let's say you own a home, and if you pull out your loan documents, you'll see APR and APY. What the heck is APY? Well, this is annual percentage rate. This is annual percentage yield. The difference between APR and APY is that if you're paying back your loan once a year, they're the same. But typically you pay every month. And that rate is APY instead of APR. So how do you calculate the APY given APR? Well, you just calculate it ordinary way and then take the difference, and that's going to be your APY. So say your bank quotes you APR of 4.25% for a $100 loan, and you're going to pay back quarterly, so 4 times. What's your APY? Okay. So the APR is 4.25, which is 0.0425. We'll use that to figure out the actual end amount of $100, compounded 4 times a year. So if you look at the formula, it's going to be 100, 1 plus 0.0425 divided by 4. Raise it to the 4th here. 4 times 1 because it's once a year. If you do the math, you get 100, 4.32. So the actual increase in your interest payment is going to be $4.32. So that's your interest. So to calculate the APY, the formula for that is actual increase over original amount. That'll be giving the decimal. If you want to convert to the percentage, you just multiply by 100. So in this case, 4.32 divided by 100, which is 0.0432, which is the same as saying 4.32%. So your APY is 4.32, that's your actual yield, even though your quoted amount, APR, is 4.25. So since you're paying more than once a year, it's a little bit more. So that's how you figure out the APY. The notes will tell you how to calculate the loan payments, credit cards, and mortgages. And if you want to know how to calculate your monthly payment with the given loan terms, the formula is in page 3 at the bottom. I'm not going to cover that one for now. If you have any questions, just let me know. The last thing is total house payment. Oh, it's a little close. Okay. So the true cost of a total house payment principal plus interest plus down payment plus points. Okay. So if you buy a house with the mortgage, then your total house payment will be altogether at the end of its loan payments will be total the principal plus the interest, any down payment you put down, and then the points you paid. Okay. So let's say you buy a house for $300,000. It's 30-year loan. You put down 20% to avoid private mortgage insurance. If you don't know any of those things, just look up how to buy a house and they'll tell you. APR, let's say 4.5%, and you pay 2 points. Your monthly payment happens to be is 1216.04. So if you use the previous page to figure out the monthly payment, that's what you should get. Okay. So the three questions: what is the total cost of the house? How much interest would you pay over the course of your loan? And then for the first mortgage payment, how much of it is the principal, and then how much of it is interest? All right. So the total principal plus the interest is this amount times 360, because it's a 30-year loan and you're going to make 12 payments per year. So that's times 360. So if your monthly payment, that includes your interest and then principal payment back. So it's going to be this times this, which is 437,776.11 cents. So this will be your total house payment, everything all together. Oops, well that's your total principal and the interest. Now we gotta figure out what your down payment is, and then what's your points paid. So down payment was 20% of the 300,000, so 300,000 times 0.20, which is 60,000. And then 2 points is going to be 300,000 minus 60,000, which is 240,000. That's your remainder. And you bought 2 points out of this, so 240,000 times 2% is 4,800. So you add this, this, and this all together. If you add it up, you get this: 500 to 574. Ouch. Okay. So that's your whole payment. This was your principal. So what's the interest? Well, you subtract, you do this minus that, because that's everything including interest and everything. So principal is this, interest will be 202,000 574. See what I mean when I say ouch? Okay. So the last problem, the interest for the first month is going to be principal times the rate times 1 month. So the principal, the remaining principal is 240,000. The rate is 4.5%, so 0.045. And then 1 month per year, so 1 out of 12. This would be 900. So the principal will be, so this is the interest. The principal, the payment was 1216.04. So the principal will be the difference between this and this, which is going to be 316.04. So that's your principal, that's your interest, which make up the first month payment right here. So in this module, you learned the in and outs of personal finance. Hopefully, the things I taught you will help you save you money.